morning, everyone, and welcome back to Wake and Take, and welcome to football, am I right? Tonight, football's back. Week 1 is officially here, so we're going to spend today's episode not just looking at tonight's Thursday night football matchup, but looking at every single matchup we're going to be watching over the week, really weekend. We've even got a game tomorrow. It's football season, ladies and gentlemen. It is football season, so we've got a good episode lined up today. Go ahead, take out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, and welcome in, everyone. Best ball on call, Donald, Brooks, Nobody, Nick Take Jake, Harry Snowman, Nicholas, and Dustin, our producer, fearless producer, Dustin Royer, helping out today in the chat as well. We've got some great stuff lined up for today's episode. Before we get into the week 1 preview, let's go ahead and do a quick little rundown of some important news stories. Then we'll talk some injuries, and then we'll do the week 1 preview. Starting with the news, just a couple quick stories for you. Ja'Marr Chase returned to practice yesterday, full uniform, full practice, all that stuff. Looks like he'll be good to go for the season. And of course, over the week, Trent Williams holdout ended as well. So the 49ers, everything seems to have figured it out, as we all knew, right? That's why we didn't spend much time talking about it here on the show. You know, like these things just always resolve themselves at some point, right? Like these things don't go on forever. There is always a resolution at some point. So I'm glad it happened yesterday. You know, I'm glad Ja'Marr Chase is back. I'm glad Trent Williams is helping that 49ers offensive line. And things are good to go. Football is here. And that's all I've got for you in terms of the news, because we're just going to go ahead and do a little bit of an injury rundown as well. And there were some shocking injuries here, to be honest with you. There's a lot of players that had limited practices, didn't practice, all that sorts of stuff. So we're going to run through it. A lot of these limited practices, I don't think we should worry about too much, given it's week 1. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll end up finding out. This is, for the most part, injuries that I want you guys to monitor tomorrow, Saturday, you know, as you've set your lineups and everything. Just kind of keep your eye on it. Maybe try out that new auto sub feature on Sleeper. Maybe you could try that thing out with some of your players if they come up here. So here we go. Injury updates. We'll start with the saddest and most important one, and that is Kyle Pitts. Yesterday, it came out that Kyle Pitts had a limited practice because of a hamstring injury. Hold on one second. Pip is being terrible. I'm just going to take him away. Unbelievable. The bird is quiet all the time, but today decided not to shut up. So anyway, he's out of the room now. Let's start that back over. Injury updates. Kyle Pitts, the biggest, most sad injury update we've ever seen. In fact, when I saw it, I pretended I did not see it. I still pretend I do not see it. Kyle Pitts picked up a hamstring injury and had limited at practice. Now, here's the deal. We're going to see what this really means. Raheem Morris and Kyle Pitts have both come out themselves and said that they're fine. You know, that Kyle Pitts is fine. And that they both expect Kyle Pitts himself, Raheem Morris, that he will be able to play 99% of the snaps he was supposed to play this week anyway, that there's just going to be a few plays that they'll probably hold him out for now and maybe take him out on some of the other things. But yeah, I think I gotta say, I'm a little bit worried about it, at least for week 1. I hope they manage him a little bit. And I've got to kind of agree here with the Harry Snowman. We'll talk about it a little bit later. I'll show it off. I did go ahead and make my DraftKings lineup for this weekend for week 1 Sunday slate. And I actually did put Drake London on it. And you guys know that I'm not a big Drake London fan this season, but, you know, for week 1, you know, wouldn't it be the funniest thing last year to have a literal 0 points in week 1 and then this season to kind of blow up? Because Kyle Pitts, I don't think is going to be able to do as much, even if they say he's 100%, right? Like, you've got to be like, okay, you know, a hamstring injury for my best player. It's already week 1. We should probably manage his load a little bit for the first week, but we'll see. I am not going to lie. It kind of upsets me because, as you guys know, big flag plant on Kyle Pitts all offseason. I really feel like this could be the year. I mean, the dude is going by Kyle Pitts Sr. now. He had a kid over the offseason, well, end of last year, but now he's Kyle Pitts Sr. officially now. This is the first year with that. Anyway, feeling big things from Kyle Pitts this season, but getting off to a rocky start with the hamstring injury. I agree with Harry Snowman here. I feel like Drake London's going to have a pretty decent game as a result of that. And hopefully Kyle Pitts still at least has like a decent game, like those Travis Kelce injured games where he gets still like 6-7 targets and like 60 yards and just maybe not used as much as in the red zone or whatever. We'll see. We'll see what it means. It sounds like he'll still be out there. Kyle Pitts, hamstring injury. Another injury that we'll see what it really means, Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen picked up a heel injury and was limited at yesterday's practice again. So this was limited. So he's practicing out there at least a little bit, which is a good sign. Generally, I should probably go ahead and say this. If you have a limited practice, you're more than likely going to play for a lot of these, I assume, at least the players that I'm going to be mentioning today. We'll find out what it means in terms of their workload and stuff like that. But given it's the first week of the season, I assume that teams are going to want to kind of roll their guys out there, even at less than 100%, just to kind of see, right? They want to see their whole beautiful picture that they've been painting all offseason come together. So Keenan Allen has a heel injury. He was limited at practice. The big thing here with Keenan Allen is just this dude has struggled to stay healthy. He's really his entire career already up there in age. And so I would go ahead and say, and I've been saying it all offseason, I am kind of fading Keenan Allen anyway. I'm big on Rome Odunze this season. I think he's going to end up being a bigger part of this Bears offense quicker and better and more so than a lot of people are suggesting. Because I think Keenan Allen will probably kind of take that JSN role in the Shane Waldron offense where he's, more so out there in the 3 wide receiver sets, which is fairly rare. So even if he is limited here at practice, he'll probably still be able to play where he's supposed to, just may not be as productive or utilized as much, which again, just opens the door for Rome Odunze. And you never really want to see a 32-year-old wide receiver injured this early in the year. So definitely some concerns for Keenan Allen, at least, already picking up an injury. But this one in particular seems to be fine, right? It seems to be pretty minor, a limited practice here. So he should be fine, but we'll see. I mean, could always lead to another injury, and we'll see what it means for his workload. Now, Marshawn Lloyd, as we know, he had a hamstring injury and avoided PUP, avoided IR, but he is not practicing this week, still has not practiced. No really updates from the coaching staff on what they expect. Given that this was an injury that we thought he would make it on the PUP list for, I'm not really expecting Marshawn Lloyd to play on Sunday. Are they Friday's game? Who cares? I'm not expecting Marshawn Lloyd to play, given he hasn't practiced this week, given he's a rookie, given they have Josh Jacobs. Hamstring injuries, they just take some time, and him not practicing is not a good sign when it comes to Marshawn Lloyd, so I'm not expecting him to play. Next, Romeo Doubs. Romeo Doubs, another limited participant in practice. This is due to a hand injury. I have not really heard many reports on this. Romeo Doubs has a hand injury. Obviously not an injury you want to have as a wide receiver, given you have to catch the damn thing. But given he was limited, you got to accept he's kind of fine or expect him to be a little fine. But I would definitely say if you have Romeo Doubs, probably don't put him in your lineup this week. Even if he's out there playing, I doubt he's going to catch a lot of passes with a hand injury, even if he is limited. You can run routes and everything just fine. You can take the corners away. You can open up coverage for your other players with a hand injury. But I doubt that he's going to be catching a ton of passes with a hand injury. But we'll see, right? We'll have some more information probably come out over the weekend as to how severe this thing is. But either way, limited at practice, hand injury. I would say go ahead and sit him this week. Maybe, as Ryan says here in the chat, maybe it is Dontavian Wicks in DFS. Could be a fun, cheap dart throw there on your DFS lineups. But I mean, I would just expect Christian Watson and Jaden Reed kind of to be just get even more. That's probably how I would look at it, but we'll see. We will see. Either way, not really excited about Romeo Doubs week 1 with a hand injury. Next up, Josh Downs. Josh Downs has an ankle injury and is still not practicing, so do not expect him to play this week either. I'm sure he'll return sooner rather than later when it comes to him because it wasn't a high ankle sprain, if I remember correctly. I think it was just ended up being an ankle sprain. Maybe I should have fact-checked that, but either way, not practicing, probably not going to be there this week, probably not next week either. Just opening the door for the other wide receivers. This will be a big one to keep note of because we heard in the preseason and during some training camp here that Adonai Mitchell was being worked in the slot, but so was their other rookie, Anthony Gold. So I'm very curious to see who they actually run out there in the slot. To me, I would expect it to be Anthony Gold just because that's what he can and does do. And I view Adonai Mitchell more as an outside threat, taking over the Alec Pierce role. But I could see, since it's early in the season, they do probably want to give AD more opportunity. But given both of those rookies have the reports that they were working in the slot, I'll be very curious to see who actually gets it and looks good in that position because the slot position last year in Indianapolis, I know it was Gardner Minshew, but still they caught a lot of passes. And with this tight end room now having Jelani Woods out again, they're going to be looking to the middle of the field. And the wide receiver there is probably going to be a lot better than this kind of group of tight end guys in Indianapolis. So I like the Colts slot receiver this year. And I would say you can still take some shots on Josh Downs. Like if you can get him in Dynasty, if you can get him even in redraft, him and Anthony Richardson have a great connection together. They really, really do. So I do think that Josh Downs, when he returns, will be fine. But you've just got to be a little bit of patient, have a little bit of patience there. Next up, we got Hollywood Brown. He's officially listed as out for tonight's game. And I would assume he'll probably miss at least one more week. We'll see. He has a long week now, given it's a Thursday night game for him. So he might be able to make it back next week. But we did know that this was an injury that had like a 4 or so week timeline. And this was, I believe, like week 3 or so. So one more week seems to make a little bit of more sense to me, just so they can let Hollywood Brown rest. And plus, they have Xavier Worthy. They've got Justin Watson. They have Mecole Hardman. Like, they don't have to really rush Hollywood Brown back. So I could see them taking a little bit of time there, but he will be back at some point. So I'll just say the same thing. If you have Josh Downs, or like I said for Josh Downs, try to acquire Hollywood Brown if you can. I do think that obviously when he returns, he'll be pretty damn good. Again, deep threat wide receiver attached to Patrick Mahomes. Sign me up. Hollywood Brown out this week, but will be back at some point. So get him while you can. This one came out of nowhere. Limited practice from Brock Bowers. So limited, so probably fine, especially since he's young. But, again, when you see limited practices, you've just got to expect that that'll probably affect the workload to some degree. And Brock Bowers is battling through a foot injury right now, it has been reported as. So we'll see, right? With the reports of Brock Bowers being a fullback, playing kind of all over the field type stuff, a scat back, if you will, you don't want to see a foot injury. You really don't. But he is seemingly playing through practice right now, so he'll probably be fine to go for the game. I would just say definitely don't put him in your lineups this week. I doubt many of you were. I can't imagine anyone was starting Brock Bowers this week. First week as a rookie tight end is never a good idea, ever. But, I could see, you drafted him pretty highly this year, so I could see if he is your tight end when you're throwing him in there. But I would say probably sit him this week. Not just because he's a rookie tight end, but also because he's going to be playing through a foot injury that he's limited at practice for. No really real reason to start Brock Bowers at all. Yeah, MV prop, this is a great question. Yes, I would probably just go ahead and start Taysom Hill over Brock Bowers, just with that upside and everything. Just go ahead and throw Hill in there. I doubt that Bowers gets to do anything. And this Chargers-Raiders game is going to be awful. We'll talk about it in a little bit. I'm expecting that game to be a total opposite of a shootout, and probably either team just completely running the clock out pretty frequently. Zamir White's going to get a ton of carries. The Chargers running backs are going to get a ton of carries because Justin Herbert's still kind of coming back from his injury. Ladd McConkey's still not 100%. I'm not expecting much from this Raiders-Chargers game really at all. Anyway, I would definitely be sitting Bowers this week in news of the injury and the fact he's got to compete for targets with Devontae Adams and Michael Mayer and Jacoby Myers. There's just no reason to start Brock Bowers this week at all. Next up, we have DJ Chark in the same game, did not practice this week. DJ Chark has a hip injury. So already DJ Chark is kind of starting to lose his season. This was a huge week for him. I know that this is a lower player that we're talking about right now, but this could have been huge for DJ Chark. He could have been able to go out this week, earn a really decent role in this offense as, kind of the de facto wide receiver 2 with Ladd McConkey on the inside. He was going to be the guy on the opposite side of the ball of Josh Palmer, him and Josh Palmer on the outside. Sure, Quentin Johnson will figure in here and there. But with DJ Chark not practicing, someone has to fill that de facto wide receiver 2 role. I understand that that's Ladd McConkey or Josh Palmer, however you want to split it. But the wide receiver 2 on the outside, you know what I mean? Like Ladd McConkey's going to be on the inside. So with DJ Chark out, that does open the door for someone else. We saw in the preseason, Darius Davis was actually a pretty damn good deep threat, had one awesome catch for a touchdown. And then Quentin Johnston, again, I don't think he's good at a wide receiver 2. I think this would actually be very, very bad for him. But given the depth chart, that's probably how you would shake out. He would probably be up there. We'll see how they utilize him there. Quentin Johnston is not DJ Chark. Which is so funny to say. Oh my God, it's so funny to say. But I'm sure he could be fine with some screens and stuff like that. Anyway, no, Jay Works, I'm not saying Ladd can't run the outside. I'm just saying he won't. like they are utilizing him in the slot. Like it's already been reported that that's how it's expected. I mean, maybe with DJ Chark out, they could move Ladd McConkey outside and throw Quentin Johnston on the inside. But like I'm just saying, like I understand Ladd is actually a pretty damn good wide receiver who could do it everywhere. But I'm 99% sure he's just the slot receiver. Anyway, next up we've got Jordan Addison, who is still limited with an ankle injury. Kevin O'Connell, however, has come out and said he expects him to have a full practice by the end of the week and be good to go. So Jordan Addison probably fine. Yeah. Next up we have Roman Wilson, and this is huge news, everyone. In fact, I think it's time to get excited. Actually, do I have a good sound effect for this? Roman Wilson. I'll just find it. Roman Wilson is back at practice. Roman Wilson is practicing now with his ankle injury. So this is pretty exciting stuff, actually, because as we knew, Roman Wilson's ankle injury was one that we were a little bit worried about, really, especially because we don't want him to lose any playing time. Well, it looks like he's going to be good to go. It was a limited practice, but Roman Wilson is a player who plays through everything. And then also, it's not like he was going to be asked to do a lot already. So I'm sure they'll still throw him out there, really, just to kind of get him acclimated to the game speed. He won't get any volume, I'm assuming. This is an Arthur Smith Steelers offense with a bad quarterback. Like, I'm not really expecting anyone outside of George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth and maybe the running backs combined to get some volume. But it's just nice to see Roman Wilson is back. Probably going to be able to play this week, and that is fantastic news for the rookie. On the other side of kind of in the backfield, I guess, for the Steelers, Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren was also limited this week with a hamstring injury, still limited from everything that I am gathering. So that is a little concerning. You don't really want to see any hamstring injury for a running back at all. But, good news for Najee Harris, who, if, Jaylen Warren's going to be limited in practice with a hamstring injury, I doubt they utilize him too much this week against the Falcons. I could see Najee Harris getting a ton of volume. And, Cordero Patterson. This is the Falcons' revenge game. We love the revenge game narrative. So if Jaylen Warren's going to be limited with a hamstring, you can't even call me crazy, right? You can't even call me crazy. We all know Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith is totally going to use Cordero Patterson in this game. Like, come on. So that's what I would say. If you want to, if you're in a deep league or you want to have a fun DFS play, Cordero Patterson could be very, very interesting. I'm given he's pretty cheap. Next, Christian McCaffrey, his calf injury. Christian McCaffrey, if you will, he's back at practice as well. I think it was limited, but I don't think it really matters for him. He's going to be playing. Don't really read too much into it. Christian McCaffrey is back. On the Seahawks, we had two limited practices, Noah Fant with a toe injury and Tyler Lockett with a thigh injury. Neither you want to see. There's not a lot of tight end depth in Seattle, so seeing Noah Fant already pick up an injury is not good, but given he's limited, he'll be out there playing, just may not be able to get the volume that we want to see from him. And then Tyler Lockett, given his age and honestly his injury history, with a thigh injury already, that is also not what you want to see. Again, I see that he has a limited practice, but I think any type of slip up just opens the door more, cracks it open for Jackson Smith-Njigba to do even more. So I would be pretty worried if I roster Tyler Lockett right now. I'm not going to lie to you guys. In Dynasty, in redraft, like, you don't want to see him start. Like I said with Keenan Allen, it may be fine this week, but to start the season with an injury at your age, it is not good. And then finally, DeAndre Hopkins is back at practice from his knee injury. So it looks like DeAndre Hopkins will be good to go week one, which is fantastic news. Now, again, he may not get his full volume week one. It may still go to Calvin Ridley and whatnot, but still, to see him back practicing is exactly what you want to see. D-Hop should be good to go this season. So those are the injury updates I have for you guys. Before we get into our week one preview, I've got a little bit of an ad break for you guys. We're going to learn about Smash Up. But before that, here is today's trivia question. Last season, who scored the most points in week one? Which player scored the most points in week one last year? The answer coming up after I find this ad. Okay. Okay. The ad is not in my thing. So let me see. I might be here. It's somewhere. There's the Smash Up ad. We will find this thing. We gotta hear about Smash Up. Jesus. Okay. I think I can share my screen. Let me pull it up on Google Drive. See, this is the problem. Why give me an ad to read and then not put the ad in StreamYard? What is this? What is this? Smash up fantasy in my Google Drive. Who scored the most points in week 1 last year? You tell me. Again, here I'm going to, I guess, share my screen so you guys can learn some more about Smash Up.
Up also is introducing the world's first single-player fantasy game. Think Street Fighter meets fantasy football, where you can go toe-to-toe versus an increasingly difficult fantasy football boss and qualify for the postseason tournament of champions. So test your skills against me, the Podfather, and the Player Profiler team today at smashupsports.com and use code PlayerProfiler. The code is Player Profiler to get special perks like extra lineups for these weekly tournaments and so much more. And it's all free at smashupsports.com.
Yeah, so that's Smash Up. Definitely go get that. In fact, guys, if you want to play Smash Up, again, this is free and it's pretty fun. I'm someone who's played card games my whole life and everything like that. I like these kind of fun little wrinkles and stuff, the power-ups and all that stuff. So I saw this ad and said, like, you know, I am fine kind of taking a chance on this thing. It's a new platform. And so I've signed up. You guys can actually challenge me. This is a weekly format. So every week you'll have to build a lineup similar to DFS. It's called Smash Up Sports. Very, very cool. This is a league that I am sharing. If you use promo code PlayerProfiler when you sign up and register, you will get some bonus perks and stuff that you can use on your lineup. So again, use code PlayerProfiler on sign up for Smash Up Sports and join this league. And you can challenge me every single week to test yourself in this thing. So I had a trivia question for you. It was, who had the most points in week 1 last year? We did have one person get it right in the chat. It was Donald, who guessed Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill had 44.5 points last season in PPR leagues, had a monstrous week 1 performance. It was like 200 yards or something like that, a couple touchdowns. He went wild. So Tyreek Hill was the answer there for our week 1 trivia question. Guys, let's do it. Week 1 is officially here. Let's go ahead and preview this thing. And to answer how exciting week 1 is and everything like that, who better than Todd Bowles? I don't know if you've seen this clip going around, but you guys got to see it. Check this out. Check out what he said when he was asked about week 1.
You're pretty stoic. Don't show a lot of your emotions. What's the season opener like for you when you walk out of that tunnel?
It's exciting! It is exciting, guys. We're here at week 1. Football. It's exciting stuff. It really, really is. Got lots of games to go over this weekend. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and do it. In fact, I'm going to do a Yahoo Pick'em League like we did last year. Just go through, make our picks on Yahoo, save them, all that stuff. In fact, you guys should be able to join me as well in this Yahoo Pick'em League. There is no link for some reason, but if you put the group ID and the password football, you should be able to make it in. So I'm going to go ahead and put the group ID in the chat. This is the Yahoo Pick'em League group ID 49738. The password is just football, all lowercase. I believe you can join. It's just called Wake and Take, is the league title. Nothing crazy, nothing fancy or anything like that. We are doing against the spread this year. Last year we did not do with the spread. We just picked winners. This year we're going with the spread. Felt like that'll kind of help decide everything. But yeah, so what we're going to do here is go game by game. I'm going to pick a winner. I'll talk a little bit about how I expect this game to go. And then I'll, of course, give a couple things that I will be watching out for. So I'm going to be quick here with Thursday Night Football. I do think the Ravens will win. But after we go through week 1, stick around because I do want to do a whole Thursday Night Football preview just to kind of celebrate being there. So I do think the Ravens will upset the Chiefs tonight. But we'll talk about that in a second. Let's go ahead and move on to the rest of the week. And that starts with tomorrow's game, Philadelphia and Packers, the Eagles and Packers in Brazil. This will be a weird game for sure. We haven't had a Brazil game yet, so I'm excited to see just how that looks. I know that we're having like different uniforms and stuff like that for both teams. Right now, I believe the Eagle, I think I can click on this actually. Yeah, the Eagles are favorited by 2.5 points. It's a decent enough spread. And it doesn't say anything about the total here on Yahoo. Looks like 65% of people are going with the Eagles, but I am not so sure, to be completely honest with you. I think the Packers should win this game. I think, maybe if it was actually in Philadelphia, I could give it to them. But I think the Eagles are going to have, obviously this is going to be a very close game, and I could see a lot of points being scored. But I think just with the new kind of everything going around the Eagles, like the way they ended last year in just such terrible fashion, the issues with Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, the new offensive coordinator, I think that they'll probably get off to a decently slow start. And I think that'll just open the door for the Packers, who ended the year in such a great way, was able to, of course, do so well in the playoffs. Fantastic season from the Packers last year. And now just going into another year with Jordan Love, I think that they'll actually win this week 1 matchup. Probably, I'll go with by a touchdown at least. I think that they've got this one in the bag, to be honest with you. It'll be a fun one, but I do think that the Packers are just kind of more put together to where they'll beat the Eagles in this game. Now, of course, in this game, we're going to be watching out for a few things. One, of course, how much volume does Saquon Barkley get? And then to another degree, how much volume does Will Shipley get? Like, it could be pretty cool to see Will Shipley actually get some passes in this game alongside Saquon Barkley. I'm expecting like an 80% opportunity share for Saquon. I think he's going to get the rock again and again and again. And I think that could end, like if Saquon does actually start off hot and get the ball a ton, I think that would definitely work in the Eagles' favor. The Packers don't really have a great defense, especially at stopping the run. So Saquon could have a huge game here. But again, I just kind of feel the Packers win this. But either way, it'll be fun to see what kind of volume Saquon gets. And then I guess to another degree, Will Shipley. I'm also just excited for the Eagles offense as a whole, right? They have this new offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore. They traded for Jahan Dotson. It seems that they want to pass the ball a lot more than they have historically. And that could mean huge things for Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, who are already top wide receivers in fantasy. If they got more volume, that could be massive for them. So I'm just excited to see just what this offense looks like in general. And then on the Packers side, we've got 2 big stories, in my opinion. One being Christian Watson. How good could Christian Watson look? Has he fixed his hamstrings? All of this stuff. Like, is Christian Watson going to be able to go out there, run all the routes, have a ceiling game? Like, that's the person I'm actually going to be watching the most on the Packers side of the ball. I'm hoping, as I've said all offseason, I'm just going to take the man's word for it. I'm not a doctor. He's done the research. He's spoken with medical professionals. He's had the work done. If he says he's healthy, I'll believe him. So Christian Watson is someone I'm keeping my eye on for sure. And then, of course, Josh Jacobs. Right? How good and how much volume does Josh Jacobs get? Imagine if Marshawn Lloyd doesn't play. Josh Jacobs could literally have 40 touches, 30 touches at least. He could go nuclear in this game. But of course, the Philadelphia Eagles do have a solid defensive line. Well, they're more of a better pass rushing defensive line, so we'll see what it means for the run game. But either way, I'm just excited to watch Josh Jacobs and the potential volume that he could get in this game, not only as a runner, but also as a pass catcher, especially if Romeo Doubs is going to be playing through a hand injury. They're going to need someone to step up a little bit. So Josh Jacobs should have a huge game in this one. In fact, we'll throw a hot take out there. Why not throw a hot take out for this game? The 2 highest scorers in this game will be Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley. It'll actually be the 2 running backs that go wild in this game, and not the quarterbacks, who I'm sure will also still do really, really well. But we'll go hot take there. Bold prediction for this game: Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley are the focal points of these 2 offenses and get it done on Friday night. Which leads us to Sunday. And we have the first game of the slate, the Falcons hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Falcons right now are favored by 3 points, and that's because they're the home team. And I've just got to give it to the Falcons. I'm sorry. Not even trying to make a homer take here, but I honestly don't expect this one to be close at all. I really, really don't. I feel like 3 points is almost laughable. I know that the Pittsburgh Steelers keep games close, but again, new offensive coordinator. It's Russell Wilson. It's only really George Pickens. It's a gimpy Jalen Warren. I'm not expecting much from the Steelers in this game, to be completely honest with you. I think that especially the Falcons are going to be so fired up to go against Arthur Smith. And, you could say the same thing for the opposite side. Like Arthur Smith, so worked up to go ahead and go against his old Falcons team and really prove that he can run an offense in Pittsburgh. Not this week, buddy. I'm sorry. Atlanta Falcons by like 2 scores at least in this one. I think the Falcons get fired up to go against their old head coach on the opposite side of the ball. I think that, of course, every single move they've made on defense. I mean, do you guys really think that Russell Wilson can pick apart a defense with Justin Simmons, Jesse Bates, AJ Terrell, now Matthew Judon, right? Grady Jarrett making his return. Like, I'm sorry. This defense is going to give Russell Wilson some fits. Now, if Justin Fields comes in and runs wild, that's where I could see there being some issues for the Falcons. If they start using Justin Fields as like a Taysom Hill type weapon, that could definitely be an issue. But this Steelers team is not ready for week 1. They're just not. I'm sorry. And I see Brittany in the chat here. I know that she's a Steelers fan. I know, but as the Falcons fan, I can't get too excited for the Steelers here. And again, I think that all the narratives in this one just line up for the Falcons to be super fired up and really just bring it to the Steelers. And I just don't expect Russell Wilson to start off well at all. I think it's going to be very, very difficult for him. I mean, AJ Terrell locking up George Pickens. And then what? So, yeah, I sorry, Steelers. Sorry. Maybe, here's the hope, right? If you're a Steelers fan, and I can't believe I'm even throwing this out into the universe, your hope is that TJ Watt hurts Kirk Cousins. Like, you want TJ Watt to sack Kirk Cousins immediately. You don't want a season ender. But you want him to get banged up a bit to where they've got to throw Michael Penix in there. That's when this game becomes close. But otherwise, Kirk Cousins is going to shred this defense. These weapons are going to shred the defense. The Falcons defense is going to make, fits out of Russell Wilson. This is 2 scores for the Falcons if everything goes their way, which it will. Now, what we'll be watching, of course, everything. We are going to be watching everything in this game. On the Falcons side of the ball, the split between Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, now that Arthur Smith is gone, could be huge. Is Bijan Robinson going to be going back there and getting true Christian McCaffrey workload? Or are they going to split it with Tyler Algier again? That's going to be big to watch. Drake London, how much volume does he get? How good does he look as a route runner? Because this is a system that relies on route running, okay? And Drake London is not a great route runner, So I'm very curious just to see how he looks in the system, how much separation he can get, everything like that. And then Kyle Pitts, of course, how much volume does he get? How are they utilizing him? How does he look with his hamstring injury? All those things, everything really I'm watching on this Falcon side of the ball. And then, of course, Kirk Cousins as well. How good does he look coming out of his Achilles injury? This is the first week that they've actually let him practice fully, without the no contact jersey, all that stuff. So he hasn't really had a lot of reps throughout the all off season because of his injury. So how quickly can he get acclimated? How good does he look out there? We'll see. And then, on the Steelers side of the ball, Scott, what role does Justin Fields have? I think that they will definitely utilize Justin Fields regardless of if he's the quarterback or not. I do think we'll see Justin Fields come in. It'll be exciting to see. I think that that'll be very, very cool. As a Taysom Hill type, as a Cordell Stewart type, who knows really. But I do think we'll see some Justin Fields, whether it be Russell Wilson gets hurt or looks bad, or just as a gadget play. He will definitely go out there. And, he's from Atlanta too. So there's a little bit of a homecoming there for Justin Fields. And then, of course, just the Arthur Smith offense in general in Pittsburgh. What does it look like? How often are they running the ball? Who's the bell cow? Is there a bell cow? How good does George Pickens look as a true wide receiver 1? We're going to be able to tell a lot in this week. So it's going to be a huge game to watch. Very exciting stuff from the Steelers and the Falcons, really. There are some big things changing, and I'm very excited to see it. Also, I guess Pat Freiermuth, is he a focal point here, or is he just, a tight end? I think it could be a huge season for him in an Arthur Smith offense with Darnell Washington is not good. Okay, I've watched him play. He's not good. He's fine, right? Like he can maybe catch some passes, but he's not a good route runner. He's more of a blocker. So it's really just up to Pat Freiermuth as a receiving tight end. So I'm very excited to see what he can do. This next game, the Buffalo Bills are hosting the Cardinals, and it is 6.5 points. So I do think the Bills win, but I'll take the Cardinals to cover. I do think that the Cardinals could cover this one. I think the Cardinals are going to be able to start off hot, to be completely honest with you. I think that there's going to be blows on both sides, just like touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. I'm feeling a true shootout here. The Bills defense is abysmal. The Cardinals defense is abysmal. You know, like I could see Arizona at least covering this. The Bills probably still win it with some Josh Allen heroics. He usually starts the year off hot. But I'm expecting Kyler Murray and this Cardinals offense to start the year off hot too. So I think 6.5 points is a crazy, crazy spread. Let's go ahead and say the Cardinals cover. I do think that the Bills win it, but we'll go with the Cardinals cover in a shootout type matchup. Should be a fun one to watch for sure. Now, the big things that we'll be watching here on the Buffalo Bills. As we know, all offseason, I've been expecting this to be similar to what we saw from the Chiefs last year with no true alpha. I don't think that's going to be the case at all. I can't imagine there being an alpha on this Bills offense. Maybe and that's the thing. Like I could see us all overreact to whatever happens week one. Like maybe Dalton Kincaid gets 11 targets against this Cardinals defense, right? But then next week he'll probably only get 4. Like that's kind of what I'm expecting here. I don't think that there will be a season-long alpha. I think that there'll be someone that is a big part of their game plan in certain matchups. So I'm just curious to see it. I'm very excited to see it. You know, how spread out are these targets? Who's Josh Allen looking to first? You know, all these things. Is Keon Coleman going to be able to break out early? Is Dalton Kincaid the alpha? How much volume does Khalil Shakir get? I mean, that's a quiet winner all offseason. Nothing has really had there's been no hype really going Khalil Shakir's way, but he's the starting wide receiver there. So I'm very excited just to see what this Bills offense looks like in terms of the pass catchers. And then secondly, how often are they using Josh Allen as a runner? Now that they have Ray Davis behind James Cook as well, like are they going to keep utilizing Josh Allen in these kind of high injury risk scenarios? Or are they going to throw Ray Davis in there for some of these goal line carries? That's what I'm excited to see. You know, also, like, what's that split in general in the backfield? Is it Ray Davis and James Cook kind of splitting it? Is it James Cook being a bell cow? What is it? I don't think James Cook will be a bell cow. We've seen it now 2 years in a row from Buffalo. They like to utilize other running backs. But this is week 1, and it's a rookie behind him. We could see a huge week from James Cook, really, against this Arizona defense. But I do think that James Cook will probably get at least like 30% of Ray Davis will get like 30% or something like that. Could be a big vulture week for him. Just curious to see what that backfield looks like in Buffalo. And then in Arizona, how many targets does Marvin Harrison Jr. get? I'm expecting at least 10. Like, I think they're going to feed Marvin Harrison Jr. early and often. The Bills don't really have a true alpha corner or anything like that. I really think that this is a defense that this Cardinals offense could pick apart pretty easily. And I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to remind us all pretty quickly how good he is at football. And I'm very excited to see it. We're going ahead and throwing a prediction out there. Marvin Harrison Jr. has 100 yards. He has a touchdown, and he has at least 8 receptions. I think we've got a big week for Marvin Harrison Jr. this week. Go ahead and get him on your DFS lineups. Try to trade for him before he plays football. Again, guys, he should not be acquirable. And the only reason he's acquirable is because he skipped out much of the pre-draft process and people have forgotten. But he's a stud and a half. Get Marvin Harrison Jr. while you can. I'm expecting a huge week for him. And then just in general, with a big week going Marvin Harrison Jr.'s way, what does that mean for Trey McBride? How much is this consolidated? Is it Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride getting 80% and then it's spread around between Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch? Or is it like a true offense, like where everyone's getting involved? I'm just very curious to see what that looks like. And then, of course, in the backfield, I see Uncle Ted say Trey Benson, baby. Can Trey Benson see the field? Like, are they going to utilize James Conner as they always have? Or are they already going to start to kind of lower his workload and feed in Trey Benson? I'm excited to see it. Should be nice. Very curious to see how the weapons or how the targets are split up in Arizona and how the backfield is split up as well. Next up, we've got Chicago versus Tennessee. Chicago's the home team. It's a 4-point spread. This is a tough one. I'm not going to lie. This is a tough one. 4 points. Let's say Tennessee covers. let's say Tennessee covers the 4. That feels a little too big in Chicago's favor. I'm going to be honest with you. I think Chicago wins this by a field goal. I'm going to go Chicago wins this by a field goal. So Tennessee covers, but I think the Bears still pull it out. The Bears are just ready, right? We saw last year their defense ended the year super strong. They have a lot of those pieces returning. Really, the big question mark here is how this offense looks, but we all know Caleb Williams is pro ready. I think he's going to be able to get things going, but I also have high expectations for this Tennessee offense as well. And they did a lot of work on their defense too. So I think that this will be a pretty close game. I think that it'll be pretty competitive, like a 24-21 type game. And so I've got I don't think the Bears win by 4. So I've got Tennessee covering, but I think Chicago wins by a field goal. I'll go with Chicago by a field goal. On I guess what we'll be looking out for on the Tennessee side of the ball, of course, the backfield split. How does Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears get worked around? Like, what does that look like? And then, DeAndre Hopkins, his health, he's going to be out there, but how often is he targeted? How good does he look? All that stuff. And then, on the second side of that, how utilized is Calvin Ridley? I think that'll be a huge question that we'll have answered on this Tennessee offense. And then we can also ask ourselves, like, Chigakonkwo, like, he is the tight end here. How much volume does he get? He should get a lot. So Chigakonkwo is going to be someone very important to watch out for this week as well. I highly, highly, highly recommend, if Chigakonkwo is on your waiver wire, to pick him up. There's a lot of players that we need to be kind of just taking a flyer on this week. Chigakonkwo is definitely one of them. Maybe Treylon Burks, arguably too, in a deeper league. But Chigakonkwo definitely. And then on the Chicago side of the ball, I'm very excited to see this backfield. DeAndre Swift, I'm expecting a really big season for him. I really am. I think when I look at the Chicago backfield, I think that we're actually going to get a bell cow DeAndre Swift season. We saw it last year in Philadelphia, and he was able to remain relatively healthy throughout the whole year, had over 1,000 yards. So I think in Chicago, this should be a pretty good fit for him. I think that Caleb Williams will look to him a lot as a pass catcher, and I think they'll utilize him a lot as a runner as well. I'm excited for DeAndre Swift. So I'm excited to see if my excitement is warranted. Are they using Roschon Johnson? Are they using Khalil Herbert? Is Velus Jones getting worked in? I think that I'm very excited just to have that answered for me this weekend. And then, of course, the pass catchers. How is it split between Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze? As I said, I'm expecting DJ Moore, Rome, and then Keenan Allen. That's the order I'm expecting here, especially with Keenan Allen now being limited at practice. I think that kind of makes that even more confirmed. But still, what does that mean? Is it 10 for DJ Moore, 5 for Rome, 4 for Keenan? Is it 8-8-8? I'm very curious to see how it's split between these weapons. I'm expecting something like, 10 for DJ Moore, 9 for Rome Odunze, 8 for Keenan Allen. I'm expecting it to be pretty damn close. But we'll see. We'll see. All those questions will be answered. And then also, we know Shane Waldron likes to use multiple tight ends. So is this it for Cole Kmet as an alpha tight end? Is Gerald Everett really going to be worked in? This is a big week to find that out. This is another one. If you've got Gerald Everett on your wire, why not take a shot? It's possible that they are running these 2 tight end sets, that, Gerald Everett is going in as a receiving tight end over Cole Kmet. It's possible. I don't think it'll happen. I'm hoping, I'm hoping that Shane Waldron is smart and they just use the tight end that the Bears paid a fuck ton of money to. But football is weird sometimes, so we will see. But either way, I'm very curious to see what that looks like. Next, man, we are not moving well. We are moving slowly here. Next up, we have the Bengals and the Patriots. Bengals favored by 8. They'll cover. This Patriots team is just so bad. They are so bad. And in fact, the Cincinnati defense is pretty damn good. They're one of those that has a bunch of guys, but they're all really good role players. So I could see them definitely giving the Patriots some fits, especially with no true alpha, Jacoby Brissett, bad offensive line. This one's probably not even going to be close. In fact, this is my pick, and I haven't even gotten to the rest of the games. This is my pick for true blowout. I could definitely see Cincinnati winning this game 35-3. I could see this getting out of hand very quickly and the Patriots struggling to even get points on the board, even in garbage time. I have no faith in this Patriots team at all. So that's kind of where I'm at. On the Cincinnati side of the ball, there's honestly not a lot to really look forward to. But of course, Zach Moss, Chase Brown, right? What does that look like? Is Chase Brown the main guy, or is he just a pass catcher? That's kind of what I'm looking out for. I think it's going to be similar to the Lions, right? Where Chase Brown is in a lot, like Jahmyr Gibbs, but then, those more goal line, short yardage stuff is when Zach Moss will come in. It's like a 55-45 type split in Chase Brown's favor is kind of what I'm expecting. So I'm excited just to see what that looks like. And then, of course, Jamar Chase, Higgins are there. Andre Yosevich, how does he look? Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki is a big one. This is a player we've been trying to talk about a lot this offseason. Him and Jelani Woods have kind of been my two sleeper tight ends. So now that Jelani Woods is out for the season, my flag is planted on Mike Gesicki as my sleeper tight end. I am hoping that Jamar Chase or that Mike Gesicki actually earns the big slot role. Like he's more than just a tight end, that he's utilized a lot as a receiver. I think that's very, very possible in this offense, given the receiving room is very open. So Mike Gesicki, another one, if he's available on your waiver wire, I highly recommend taking a flyer on this week to see what he looks like. And especially revenge game narrative. Hunter Henry going up against his Patriots, who we just left. So there's a little bit of a extra oomph there for some Mike Gesicki this week. On the Patriots side, I guess we will be looking to see what Ramondre Stevenson, what type of workload he gets, how much is Antonio Gibson worked in, and then of course just the wide receivers, right? Is Jalen Polk the wide receiver one, right? Tyquan Thornton, is he more than just a deep threat? We have a lot of questions about this Patriots wide receiver core. They've been pretty close to their chest about it, so I'm excited to finally see the action. I'm expecting a true cycle. I'm expecting every wide receiver to get worked in here and there, depending on the play call. That's kind of what I'm feeling and expecting here from New England, given there's no true alpha. But we'll see, right? We'll see. I mean, I think that Jalen Polk, from everything we're hearing, is the one that'll be out there 100% of the time, which is pretty exciting stuff. But yeah, that's the Patriots. We'll move on now to another exciting game. The Colts are hosting the Texans. It looks like the Texans are favored by 3, and I'll take them to cover that, actually. I am starting to feel, and we'll show it, I have a DFS lineup to show you guys. I actually chose the Texans defense this week. I am worried about Anthony Richardson. I'm just not going to lie. I'm very, very worried about Anthony Richardson. The closer we get to kickoff, I understand all the intangibles and everything and how awesome he is as a runner. I was not very inspired by what I saw in the preseason. And I really do think that his accuracy issues are going to be a problem. And this Houston Texans defense is a lot better than people give credit for. So I could actually see this kind of getting out of hand. Obviously, Anthony Richardson's athletic enough to kind of keep it close. But I could see this being one of those games where Houston gets out to a lead early and then just keeps that lead. By 7, by 10, by 7, by 3, by 10, it just keeps going up and down. But the Colts never take the lead at any point. It always kind of just seems like it is in the Texans' hands. That's kind of what I'm expecting here. So I actually, like I said, I actually took the Texans defense in my DFS lineup this week just because I'm worried about Anthony Richardson's accuracy issues. And just honestly, the offense as a whole, it's a tight end group. Now Josh Downs is out. It's really just Jonathan Taylor. And that could be an issue, if they fall behind, right? So I'm a little bit worried about the Colts in this game. I am not going to lie. But things that we'll be looking out for on the Houston Texans side of the ball, the target shares between Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell. What does that look like? Like I said, this is kind of what I think here. This is the official Jason, what would you call this? Summarization of what I think will happen in Houston. I believe that Tank Dell is CJ Stroud's first read. I think that that's going to be the case all season long. So I think Tank Dell gets the most targets. I think Nico Collins gets the most yards because of his explosive ability. And I think Stephon Diggs will find himself somewhere around the middle. I think that Stephon Diggs is still the odd man out. I understand he's Stephon Diggs, but I also understand it's a one-year rental. So I'm expecting Nico Collins and Tank Dell to actually be utilized more than Stephon Diggs. Maybe Tank Dell more than Diggs, Diggs more than Collins, but then Collins outproduces Diggs, something like that. Either way, I think that, I'm just excited to see what that looks like. And then, on the inverse, how much opportunity is even there for Dalton Schultz, right? How much opportunity does Joe Mixon get as a pass catcher? And then when speaking of Joe Mixon, how much opportunity does he get? How much opportunity do the backups get? And then who is that backup? Is it Dameon Pierce? Is it Cam Akers? Is it Jawar Jordan? Who is getting the ball? It's looking like it'll be Cam Akers. He looked pretty damn good in the preseason, made that final roster, but we will see. On the Colts side of the ball, again, as we talked about with Josh Downs' injury, which wide receiver is in the slot? Like I said, I highly recommend taking a flyer on Anthony Gould this week. There's a high potential he gets that slot spot because of the draft capital on top of his skill set, on top of the reports that he was working in the slot during training camp. So highly recommend taking a flyer on Anthony Gould because he's not only going to be potentially the slot this week, but also I believe is the starting kick returner as of now, which could be huge. So I do say go ahead and take a little flyer on Anthony Gould. We're curious to see who that slot receiver is. And then also in the tight end room, who's the pass catching tight end? We saw last year it was one tight end one week, another the next week. I think that'll probably be the case, but there is one tight end, not named Jelani Woods, on this Colts team that does profile more as the receiver. And I see a lot of people saying Kylen Granson. I think I'm picking Will Mallory. Will Mallory is the Colts tight end I'm keeping my eye on. He was a rookie last year, and towards the end of the season actually started being the one getting the most receptions. So I could see that being the case again here. He's more of a receiving tight end than the other ones. So Will Mallory is kind of the one I'm keeping my eye on. I'm not against taking both Granson and Mallory. I definitely think it'll be one of those two. But I think for me, I'm kind of leaning more towards Mallory. He's younger and was kind of more the receiving threat last year. But either way, I'm excited to see how that's divvied up. If it's just a group again, like if all of them are getting targeted and worked in, I'm just staying away. I don't even care. But if either one of them can establish themselves during week one, could be huge. Definitely go ahead and pick them up just to see what happens. And that's honestly kind of it. Like, I guess, is Alec Pierce good is a question that'll be answered as well. I think Alec Pierce loses his job very, very quickly to Adonai Mitchell. Next up, we have the Dolphins Jaguars. The Dolphins are favored by 3.5. It's in Miami, but that's not as much of a home field advantage given Jacksonville is also in Florida. And you know what? I don't think I've picked enough upsets here. Let's go with the Jags. Let's go with the Jaguars. Shock the Dolphins in week one. I'm not sure how it'll happen. This is just, I want to pick an upset now. We're at the point of the show. I want to pick an upset. And this one I'm looking at, two Miami teams or two Florida teams. Jaguars, I think, are very, very slept on. We've said it a few times. Trevor Lawrence is a massive value. I think Travis Etienne's a value. I think Brian Thomas Jr. is a value. Evan Ingram's a value. Gabe Davis is kind of a value as well in best ball. Either way, I like this Jaguars team. I think they're shaping up to be a lot better than people are expecting. So I think that they could actually come in there and shock Miami. Maybe just cover the spread. Maybe the Dolphins just win by 3 instead of 3.5. But either way, we're going to take the Jaguars in this one. I think that they shock the Dolphins, and the Dolphins get a little bit worried. Can I start BTJ as a flex week one? Since it's against the Dolphins, sure. This could end up being a shootout, and all reports are saying that they are going to let Brian Thomas Jr. swim this week. Not even walking before swimming. They're throwing him out there, which is great news for BTJ. If you don't have a better option, why not? I mean, it could be huge for this week. But yeah, what are we going to be watching out for in this one on the Dolphins side of the ball? The running backs. That's really all we're going to be watching. I mean, we all know what's going to happen with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, but for the running back room, is Devon Achane a bell cow? Is it a 30-30-30? Like, what does it look like? I expect a full committee. My prediction here is 40 Achane, 30 Mostert, 58, 40, 40, 20, right? 40 Achane, 40 Mostert, 20% Jalen Wright. I think all three are going to have opportunity all season long. So I am pretty excited to watch that unfold. If Achane establishes himself as a bell cow, that could actually be huge, but I don't think he will. I think that all three are going to get worked in, and they'll probably all be pretty decent this week. And then in the Jaguars, just the wide receivers, really, and we could throw Evan Ingram in there. We now have two new wide receivers on the team in Brian Thomas Jr. and Gabe Davis. We're very excited to see how those are split up target-wise, how often they're used, how many routes they run, stuff like that. And then Christian Kirk returning from his injury. How much volume does he get immediately? He wasn't there last year, which kind of led to Evan Ingram getting a ton of usage. So how does that look between the two as well? Is Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk being utilized the same as they were last year? Is Evan Ingram being utilized a ton? Like just the pass catchers in general in Jacksonville should answer a ton of questions. And then, of course, Travis Etienne, too, as a pass catcher. If he can catch like 4 or 5 passes in this game, I think that solidifies himself as a top 3 tight end. or top 3 running back. Sorry, because that's gonna. Because he's gonna get all the carries, and if he's gonna get PPR upside as well, that could be huge. So I'm excited to watch this Jaguars team. Next up, we've got a divisional matchup: Saints hosting the Panthers, and it's a 4-point spread. We're actually gonna go with the Panthers here. I don't think the Saints are any good. I do not think the Saints are any good this year. In fact, yesterday I teased it, brought back the average football enjoyers with my pals, some of my fellas. We started talking football a few years back and kind of stopped doing the show, but we decided to bring it back again last night. And one of the predictions my friend Reese made was that Dennis Allen gets fired by week 6. And I actually am a big fan of that. I think that Dennis Allen is not a good head coach, and I think this Saints team has a lot of issues facing them. So we'll go with another kind of upset here with the Panthers over the Saints, and maybe it's just a cover. I definitely don't think the Saints win by 4 if they do win. This will definitely be a close game. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and say this. Every season, if I ever have a player playing against the Saints, I generally feel awful about starting them. I will never start a player in DFS against the Saints. There's just something about that team where it is always a slow football game that like only one team scores 20 points. Like it is every single fucking game with this team. It is a disgusting, messy ass football game. And it's because fuck the Saints. So I am not expecting them to do well, really, but I am excited to see what they look like. Okay. Is Derek Carr Derek Carr? Is Alvin Kamara Alvin Kamara? Is Chris Olave Chris Olave? Those are questions that we'll have answered. The tight ends, is Juwan Johnson returning? What does that look like? I definitely recommend taking a flyer on Juwan Johnson if he's out there. And then Rashid Shaheed as well. Is he more than just a kick returner? I don't know. I think he really is just a deep threat and kick returner guy. And I think that's why they keep kind of addressing wide receiver. They did it again in the draft this year. I don't think that it's like, basically when I'm looking at the Saints offense, I think Chris Olave is gearing up to get too many targets almost, really, because I think Rashid Shaheed is mostly just a kick returner. And I think that's evidenced by them only signing him to a 1-year, like $4 million deal. I think if they wanted to utilize him more than that, they would definitely, utilize him more or pay him more. Right. So anyway, I'm a little bearish on Rashid Shaheed. So I'm excited to see if he can prove me wrong, really, because I do like him a lot. Very, very fun playmaker. And I've had him on my team, on one of my dynasty teams since his rookie season. So we'll see. Ryan says hot take Rattler is the starter by midseason. I'm going to go against that. Rattler was awful at the Senior Bowl up until like the last practice. So, maybe it does just take some time for him. But he did not impress me much of the Senior Bowl. Not a great college production either. I don't have much high expectations for Rattler. But, if, Derek Carr gets hurt or whatever. But either way, I think if Rattler takes over, he's not going to earn like the starting job. He would just be replaced. Gruden named interim Brooks. So we've got lots of FTS takes here. I like it. It's F Derek Carr. It's F Dennis Allen. That's hilarious. And then our fearless producer, Dustin, Taysom Hill will be the coach. How much usage does Taysom Hill get? I'm going to throw a hot take out there, a bold prediction. Taysom Hill has more special teams yards than Rashid Shaheed in this game. I think Taysom Hill is going to be used on special teams. Call me crazy. I think Taysom Hill is going to be used on special teams. On the Panthers side of the ball, we are going to be, of course, looking out to this wide receiver room. Adam Thielen, is he still the featured wide receiver? Or is it Deontay Johnson? Jonathan Mingo, has he grown in year 2? Those are the questions that will be answered. Then, of course, Xavier Legette. What does he look like in his first NFL action? And then Chuba Hubbard, how much of a bell cow is he? Are they working in another running back? I think that's going to be a big question. And then, of course, Bryce Young, is he the number 1 overall pick? Is he finally going to be what he was drafted to be? We will find out. And then the tight end, Jatavian Sanders. Like I said, I think Jatavian Sanders is in a great situation to get a lot of volume early. I could see Jatavian Sanders catching a touchdown and like 6 passes in this game or something like that. Well, that's 6 targets. 6 targets and a touchdown for Jatavian Sanders in this game is what I'm kind of expecting. I just think with no true alpha and then no other tight ends, I think they're just going to have to rely on him. Kind of like I said, like a Sam Laporta light situation, essentially, where Sam Laporta was just kind of thrown to the wolves on the Lions last year. I think it'll kind of be the same for the Sanders. Generally it takes some time for tight end, but I think sometimes you just got to look at the situation. And the situation here in Carolina suggests to me that Sanders could actually break out pretty early. So if he's available, definitely go pick him up. I keep mentioning tight ends to pick up, which is fun. But yeah, because this will be like, I'm saying all these tight ends because it's like, you'll know. Like, you only have to hold them this 1 week, and then you could just drop them if they fucking suck, right? But I'm just, it'll be curious to see just how they look, right? So the Panthers, I'm going to take them to at least cover. I think they could end up sneakily winning this one too. Next up, the Giants are hosting the Vikings. The Vikings, it looks like, are favored by 1.5 despite it being in New York. This is going to be one of those games that I think ends up being more exciting than people are giving credit for. I understand it's Sam Darnold versus Daniel Jones, but that's exactly why this will be a fun game. I think both Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones have some good games, okay? The Vikings defense is not good. The Giants defense is okay. They are getting better, but I think that like, this is a perfect like week 1 ceiling performance for both Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold. Okay. Like, I think both of them will have their best game of the season this week. That's my take. Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold both have the best game of their entire season this week. They both just go nuclear in week 1, which I think could be great for Malik Neighbors, could be huge for Justin Jefferson. Definitely trying to start those guys. Ryan says they both throw 3 picks. And you know what? They could both throw 3 interceptions, and that would still probably end up being their best game of the season. Am I right, fellas? Am I right? They're terrible. They're so bad at football. But anyway, who am I picking? I'll take the Vikings. I'll take the Vikings over the Giants. It's a tough one, but I don't believe in the Giants team at all. And I do think, like we've seen from Minnesota before, the quarterbacks that whatever they throw back there end up being okay in this system, right? Like, Kevin O'Connell does a really good job with his quarterbacks. So I could see Sam Darnold going out there and being just fine. 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, a couple interceptions, sure. But I don't think Daniel Jones is going to really be able to catch up to that, to be honest with you. Even with Malik Neighbors, there's just going to be some issues there. So I think the Vikings pull this one out. I think Sam Darnold starts his Vikings career as a starter with a win. And so what we'll be watching out for in this game, the Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler split. How many fucking targets does Justin Jefferson get? Josh Oliver, another tight end flyer. Pick up Josh Oliver. There's a potential he gets a ton of opportunity with TJ Hawkinson out. And then Jordan Addison too. How much volume does he get? I'm just very curious to see how Sam Darnold really divvies up these targets, really. I think my take is that Justin Jefferson gets like 25 of Sam Darnold's 30 pass attempts. Like, that's kind of what I think. Like, I think Justin Jefferson's going to be fed and fed again. So I'm just excited to see it. And then on the Giants side of the ball, Devin Singletary, how good does he look? Who's the backup running back behind him? How good do they look? And then, of course, Theo Johnson versus Dan Bellinger. How are they utilized? And then Malik Neighbors. What does Malik Neighbors look like? Same thing. Obviously, he's going to be getting separation and stuff, but how do the Daniel Jones pass attempts kind of translate with all that volume? Very curious to see it. And then also Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson. How much volume can they get as well? There's potential for them this season, potentially, right? Especially with such a bad team, they could be playing behind a lot, get some garbage time. Just curious to see how they look in this game as well. Next, we've got the Chargers versus Raiders. The Chargers hosting the Raiders, favored by 3 points. I'll go with the Chargers. I'm going to go with the Chargers in this one. Like I teased a little bit earlier, I do think that this is a game that's going to be super fast, I guess I should say. It'll go by quickly, but it'll feel very slow. I think that both of them are going to just take the air out of the football, run it a ton, and they're just going to kill the clock. So it'll be like a 17-14 type game, right? So I'll go with the Chargers. I think they beat the Raiders. But I do think it'll be close. The Raiders team is one of those that I think kind of like the Saints, I guess I could say. I think the Raiders will probably still finish below 500, but I doubt they lose more than like 2 games by more than 1 score, right? Like, I think they'll be in a ton of 1-score contests all season because that's just what Gardner Minshew does, and they have a very scrappy defense. So I think they're going to be in a lot of close contests, but I don't know how many wins they're going to get. So we'll take the Chargers to edge them out. And yeah, I think it'll be a fun one. I think it will be a very fun one. On the Chargers side of the ball, We're curious to see how Justin Herbert looks. As Brooks says here, he'll be limping with his plantar problem. It actually came out yesterday. I probably should have put this in the news and injury section. What was I thinking? He's 100% and off the injury report per the latest news. So Justin Herbert should be totally fine and good to go. So how does he look? And then, of course, the wide receivers, Ladd McConkey, Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnston, right? Like, how many targets are they getting? And then the Chargers tight ends as well. They have Will Dissly and Hayden Hurst now as well. So how are they utilized? And of course, the run game. J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, even Kamani Vidal. How are they utilized as well? Just a big one to watch. I'm kind of expecting J.K. Dobbins actually to have more carries, at least like on first and second down stuff, or first and third. Like I think with his explosiveness, they'll be attracted to that. But I think they'll utilize Gus Edwards a lot too in short yardage and goal line situations. And I honestly don't think Kamani Vidal will really see the field until an injury. But like I said, I am flag planting Kamani Vidal. If he's available, Kamani Vidal, pick him up for sure. Because all it takes is an injury, and then he's a bell cow, really. Like, he's going to be a stud at some point this season. It's just a matter of when, not if. So get Kamani Vidal if you can. And then on the Raiders side of the ball, I'm curious to see the tight ends. Michael Mayer, Brock Bowers. How are they utilized? Who gets more targets? All that stuff. Very, very excited to see Brock Bowers' usage, to be honest. Is it more than just a tight end? Is he actually getting these backfield looks? All that stuff. All those questions will be answered. Is Michael Mayer going to out-target him? We'll see. We will see. And then Devontae Adams. How many targets does he get? How often is Gardner Minshew looking his way? On the inverse, Jacoby Myers. How often is he going to be utilized? Is he even worth rostering? That type of stuff. Those are going to be answered in this game as well. And then Zamir White. Zamir White, are you more than just a running back? Can you stay in on third down and catch passes? That's a huge question mark heading into this season. I think he's going to be a bell cow, at least on first and second down. But I'm very excited to see what happens on third down for this Raiders offense. Is Dylan Lobb coming out, which is another player. If Dylan Lobb is available, go pick him up just to see, right? If he is in there on third downs as a rookie in week 1, that's huge, exciting news for Dylan Lobb. So definitely pick him up just in case. And that's what we're going to be watching out for on this Raiders team. Moving on, the Seahawks hosting the Broncos. Seahawks favored by 6. I think, yeah, you know what? We'll take it. Well, I don't know. That is a big spread for this. Both the Seahawks and Denver have a lot of question marks heading into this game. So you know what? I'll say Denver covers. In fact, you know what? Screw it. Denver beats the Seahawks in Seattle. We'll go with another upset here. Bo Nix starts his career with a win. I just think Seahawks, new coaching staff, now less than 100% Tyler Lockett, not that great of a defense. I think they're going to struggle week 1. I think they'll figure it out, right? But I could see the Broncos. Sean Payton's been there now. They've got a lot of established veterans on both sides of the ball. The defense ended the year in a really great way last year. Bo Nix is pro-ready. Say what you want about that. The running backs are all there and healthy. I think the Broncos could shock some people in this game. And I think it'll go like this. I think Seattle is winning for the first 3 quarters, and then Bo Nix makes a fourth quarter comeback and wins this thing. Bo Nix, fourth quarter comeback in week 1. Bold prediction into the ether. Let's see what happens. But let's see. Who are we watching out for? On the Broncos, of course, how good does Bo Nix look? Very curious to see the wide receivers. That's going to be a big one. Is Cortland Sutton the only one getting targeted? How often is Marvin Mims getting utilized? How often is Troy Franklin getting utilized? Greg Dulcich versus Adam Troutman in the tight end room. How does that look? And then, of course, the running backs. Javonte Williams is probably going to be the RB1, but what does that really mean? To me, like I said, the Broncos running back has been the one I've totally avoided. I have 0% Denver backfield. I have no Audric Estime, no Blake Watson, no Jaleel McLaughlin, no Javonte Williams. I totally avoided them. And I'm excited to see if I get validated in that. I'm expecting all of these guys to get opportunity, which I just think is going to make it very difficult to start any one of them on a week-to-week basis. But we'll know. If Javonte Williams goes out there and is utilized in 60% of the snaps, that would be huge for him this season and the managers that held on to him. So that could be very awesome. So that's what we're going to be watching out for on the Denver side. And then Seattle side. With Tyler Lockett less than 100%, is JSN the wide receiver 2? That could be huge for people that drafted Jackson Smith and Jigba or traded for him in Dynasty this offseason, bought into his dip. He's still a very talented wide receiver, only going into year 2. Just the situation wasn't right this year. We've got a new offensive coordinator. So this could be a totally different offense. If they're even running 3 wide receiver sets, that's something to be looking out for as well in this game. If Jackson Smith-Njigba is the starting slot receiver in 3 wide receiver sets that are run more often than they were last year, that could be huge as well. So I'm very excited to see Jackson Smith-Njigba's usage in this game. And then Kenneth Walker. Like I said, I'm expecting Kenneth Walker to be a total bell cow. I think he's going to have at least 80% of the share in this game. And I think he's going to rush for at least 100 yards and 2 touchdowns against this Broncos defense. I think he's going to be the heart and soul of this Seahawks offense all season long. I think that Geno Smith is on his way out. So I'm just excited and going to be watching to see what kind of opportunity, usage, and production Kenneth Walker has in this game against a less than desirable defensive line. Now, the next game is the Browns versus the Cowboys. The Browns are somehow favored by 2.5 points. I'm assuming because they're the home team, but the Cowboys win this game, and I'm going to go handily. I think they win this game by at least a touchdown. It's a really good Cowboys defense, and everyone's back on offense, really. So I honestly am surprised that the Cowboys are not favored in this game as America's team, especially since the Browns are terrible at football. I know the defense is good, but Deshaun Watson has not given us any reason to be confident in him. There's no Nick Chubb, and Jerome Ford is fine, but he showed no explosiveness or elusiveness last season. He was outside the top 32 in yards per touch, was outside the top 40 in breakaway run rate, right? It's not an explosive Browns offense. I think they're definitely going to struggle in this game on the offensive side of the ball. Now, if this ends up being a defensive battle, I could see that maybe being where the Browns went out, but this is 2 pretty decent defenses. Cowboys had the better offense by far, so the Cowboys win this game. And I'm honestly surprised they're not favorited, to be honest with you. I honestly am shocked when I look at that. But anyway, what are we looking out for? The Browns. Deshaun Watson. That's the big one. What does he look like, right? And then Jerome Ford. How much volume does he get? I'm assuming all of it. And then the wide receivers. Amari Cooper. Now we have Jerry Jeudy. David Njoku. David Njoku ended the year strong last year, but is that because of Joe Flacco? That will be answered. Does Deshaun Watson throw the ball to Njoku? Does he just log on to Cooper? Is he finding Jerry Jeudy? Excited to watch it. Very, very excited to watch it. Kind of avoiding them all. I don't trust Deshaun Watson in the slightest. On the Cowboys side of the ball, Ryan Flournoy, ladies and gentlemen. We are watching out for Ryan Flournoy. Does Ryan Flournoy crack the field at all? Imagine, first snap of the game, you see number 80. Trotting out to the field. Yeah, he changed his number to 80, everyone. And you just see him out there. It's CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, and Ryan Flournoy. That's what we're going to be watching out for. I don't think it'll happen. I think that Jalen Tolbert gets the first crack. But, if they do 4 wide receiver sets, I could definitely see Ryan Flournoy being utilized in this one, especially if it gets out of hand. So we are definitely on the official Ryan Flournoy watch. As we know, if Ryan Flournoy scores a touchdown, in the regular season, we were having a massive dance party. In fact, I think the whole episode would just be a Ryan Flournoy dance party the more I think about it. But anyway, so we're watching that. We're going to see how CeeDee Lamb looks, given that he's been sitting out the entire offseason. We're going to see how Brandon Cooks looks, given that he's old, and he didn't really look that great last season. But, now that he's the true wide receiver 2, this could be a big season for Brandon Cooks. So I'm just excited to see what he looks like. Again, I'm not really betting on him because I believe that Ryan Flournoy is going to break out, but we'll see. And then Jake Ferguson, how much opportunity does he get as well? Those 3 weapons in particular we're going to be watching out for. And then, of course, the backfield. Tons of guys there. Ezekiel Elliott, Rico Dowdle, now Dalvin Cook. What does that look like as well? Who's getting the most opportunity? I think it's going to be Ezekiel Elliott. I know the reports say Rico Dowdle, but I'm assuming Ezekiel Elliott is going to get the rock a ton. Next, we have the Buccaneers versus the Commanders. The Buccaneers are hosting and favored by 3 because of that home field advantage there. Yeah, we'll take the Buccaneers. Think about it. The Buccaneers were in the playoffs last year. They almost beat the Lions. Very, very competitive football team. Won the NFC South. No one's really leaving. In fact, they've only gotten better. So I think the Buccaneers, just because the Commanders have a new coaching staff, really an entirely new team, I think they'll be able to handle the Commanders in this one. I do think it'll be close. And I'll answer your question here, Alex. Can you start JD week 1? I think so. In fact, in my DFS lineup that I'll share in just a minute, I did make Jaden Daniels my quarterback in it because of that Konami code ability. But I do think the Buccaneers win this game. The Washington defense is just not good enough to cover Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Rashad White, Chris Godwin, Baker Mayfield. So I think the Buccaneers win it, given it's nothing's really changing. But I do think it'll be close. And then what we'll be watching out for in Tampa is Rachaad White. Is he still a bell cow, or are they really going to use Bucky Irving? I don't think so, but I'm excited to see what happens. And then also Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, how much opportunity do they get over Jalen McMillan? How often is Jalen McMillan utilized? I think that could be huge. And then can Cade Otton, will he establish himself as a value tight end? Like, if he can get consistent usage, he could have a huge, huge season on this offense. So I'm excited to watch that. And of course, on the Washington side of the ball, Jaden Daniels, how does he look? We'll just leave it at that. I think he's going to look amazing, but how does he look? It'll be cool to see. Does he pass the ball, or is he lead straight to running? How often does he scramble? We will see how comfortable he is in true NFL action this week, not just the preseason. I know he looked great in the preseason, but this is real football against a pretty damn good playoff team, the Buccaneers. So this could be huge for him. And then the running backs. I'm expecting Brian Robinson to be the bell cow here. I'm expecting like 70% of opportunities for him. I'm expecting Brian Robinson to catch some passes as well. But how does Austin Eckler mix in? Is it more 60-40? Is it 50-50? Is Austin Eckler getting the most opportunity? This will be answered this week as well. And then the pass catchers. Is it only going to Terry McLaurin? How often is Zach Ertz utilized as more than just a red zone threat, but as a true weapon too, as the tight end? Those are the two things, Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz. And then Luke McCaffrey, he actually made the starting roster. He is listed as the wide receiver 3. What does he look like? Could be huge for Luke McCaffrey. And just in general, just excited to see this Commanders team, what they all look like, who's going where, stuff like that. Could be huge. Could really be huge. Did Noah Brown go to the Commanders? I think so. Let me fact check that. I believe Noah Brown went to the Commanders. So, yes. So I do want to say get Noah Brown, because as you know, Noah Brown actually played in Dallas when Dan Quinn was there as well. So I could see him actually being utilized a ton. We saw him break out a lot in Houston last year. So if Noah Brown's available, I know it's a nasty one. I do think you should pick him up just for like a week 1 flyer, because I could see him being a player that you could pick up. He blows up and then you trade or something like that. So a flyer to take there. Just excited to see the Washington pass catchers. Next, we have the Lions versus Rams in Detroit. And Detroit wins it. Yeah, Detroit wins this game. It's going to be a shootout for sure. I think that Matthew Stafford, of course, is going to be fired up to be back in Detroit. I think that both teams score over 30 in this one. If you have any Detroit Lions or Rams, I would be starting them this week in fantasy. I'm sure you already were, with even down to JMO. I mean, this should be a very fun game. And I think it'll be very close. I think it'll be a shootout, but I do think the Lions win this thing. And yeah, I think they could win it by more than 3.5 as well. Now, on the Lions side of the ball, we'll of course be watching Jahmyr Gibbs. Is Jahmyr Gibbs a bell cow now, or is he still having the same exact opportunity and snap share as he did last year alongside David Montgomery? Very curious to see that. And then, of course, Jameson Williams. This is the Jameson Williams show. So how does he look? I'm expecting a touchdown in this game, really. I think that Jameson Williams is ready to go and fired up. And this is the perfect opportunity for him, as the Rams don't have a great defense. I could see J-Mo going electric in this game early even. So I'm excited to watch Jameson Williams. And just to see the target share in general. How many catches does Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra, J-Mo get Gibbs? How is that split? It'll be a big question mark answered in a huge game against the Rams. Then on the Rams side of the ball, we're of course watching the backfield. Blake Corum versus Kyren Williams. I think it's going to be a slow roll. I do think that Kyren Williams is going to start the year with at least 60% of the opportunities, but I do think that Blake Corum will be figured in a little bit, especially with this being, in Detroit, in Michigan. Blake Corum, a little homecoming for him. Could feel fired up in that stadium. Who knows? But either way, I do think that he'll get some opportunity. The question is how much between Blake Corum and Kyren Williams. How is that split up? And then Cooper Kupp versus Puka Nacua, of course, as well. I expect Cooper Kupp to be the alpha this season. I really do. But I also expect it to be close, of course. I think 150 to 140 targets type thing. They're both basically neck and neck. But I think Cooper Kupp outperforms Puka Nacua this year. And it starts this week. I'm excited to see it. And then the tight ends with Tyler Higbee out on the Rams side. Colby Parkinson, a player I like a lot, just because of the long hair, really. Can he establish himself as a true NFL tight end, or is he just, a chunk play here and there? So Colby Parkinson, definitely worth the flyer. If you have the bench space as the starting tight end in Los Angeles, he could actually get a decent bit of volume and production. So that's what we'll be watching out for there. And then the final game of the week, San Francisco hosting the Jets and favored by 4 points. Guys, this might be my hottest take in this show. The San Francisco 49ers are going to whoop the New York Jets. This game is not going to be close at all. And I would be sitting my Jets not named Breece Hall. Breece Hall is the only one I want to start in this game because he's going to catch a ton of passes out of the backfield from Aaron Rodgers. I think that this offensive line and this Jets team is going to come off slow. Aaron Rodgers, of course, missing all last year is going to hurt. The San Francisco defense is just so good. They're not losing anyone on the defensive side of the ball, really, or the offensive side of the ball. They're fired up with everything that's been going against them this offseason. I think the 49ers start off very, very hot and really give it to the New York Jets in this game. I could see this being not like the Bengals 34-3 prediction, but like 42-17 type game. Like the 49ers just continuously score touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. And yeah, I think I'm not expecting the Jets to be able to do much in this game at all. But we'll get some questions answered on the San Francisco side of the ball. The backup running backs. Does Isaac Guerrero, does he get mixed in behind Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason? I think he will, and that's why I keep saying don't pick up Jordan Mason. Just don't worry about it. Let that be someone else's problem. But then also the pass catchers, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, they're going to be utilized a lot. But Jacob Cowing, Jawan Jennings, Ronnie Bell, these guys, how are they mixed in? George Kittle, how is he mixed in? I'm excited to see that as well. Mostly excited to see Jacob Cowing to see how he's utilized on top of the other people. Brandon Ayuk, too. I'm curious to see if he starts off slow. He's got a tough matchup week 1, Brandon Ayuk does, against Sauce Gardner. That's going to be tough. So I think that he starts off slow for sure. I think he has a tough matchup. In fact, I would go ahead and say start Deebo Samuel this week. I'm feeling Deebo Samuel. And yes, start Rashee Rice over Brandon Ayuk, Scott. I would definitely do that. I think that Ayuk had no practice all offseason and then has a matchup against Sauce Gardner. Not feeling good about that one. On the Jets side of the ball, how does Aaron Rodgers look? Post Achilles. Is he good? Is he fine? That's what we need to know. How many catches does Breece Hall have? That's what we're watching as well. And then, of course, is Breece Hall the bell cow, or are they utilizing Braylon Allen a lot for some of these between the tackles type stuff? That's what we're going to be watching out for, Braylon Allen usage for sure. And then the wide receivers outside of Garrett Wilson. We know Garrett Wilson's going to eat, but how much does Alan Lazard get utilized? Malachi Corley. That's what we're going to be watching out for. I think that it'll be interesting for sure. I think Alan Lazard is going to be a player that gets a lot more usage than people want him to get, if I'm going to be honest with you. Aaron Rodgers and him are buddies. It is what it is, right? So that's what I should expect. Now, that is it. That is it. So again, guys, I put it in the chat. If you want to join this Yahoo Pick'em League, the group ID is 49738. It's on Yahoo. It's called Wake and Take. And the password is football. So if you want to join that, take me on over the season. We'll be doing this every week, going through, picking the games, talking about what we're watching for, all that fun stuff. So that is my picks for the week. Just to recap: Ravens, Packers, Falcons, Cardinals, Titans, Bengals, Texans, Jaguars, Panthers, Vikings, Chargers, Broncos, Cowboys, Bucks, Lions, Niners for my winners of the week. Now, before we keep going, I want to show off some of my lineups, but I did also want to remind you guys, before I show off my DFS stuff and everything like that, that Player Profiler within the all-in package and everything has the DFS Dominator. In fact, I believe you can just buy the DFS Dominator that comes with a lineup genius, a cash game optimizer, an upside finder, a value finder, and this is where you can find some great stuff. It gives you all of our projections for every single player every single week, and you can build lineups. Highly recommend this tool. You just pick a player. We talked about it. I'm fine with Jaden Daniels this week. I think his price is perfect given his upside. And then with that, you might as well stack him with Terry McLaurin. And you know what? Screw it. Why not Zach Ertz as well? You get to choose up to 2 skill players. And then you get to choose if you want to do it based on upside or just floor, how many lineups you want, who you want in the flex, how much chalk you want to use, how much correlation you want, all this stuff. I just keep it at default usually. And then just let it make a lineup for you. And they're always really awesome stuff. Look at this. Jaden Daniels, Bijan, Jerome Ford, Jalen Waddle, Drake London, Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz, Travis Etienne, and the Panthers defense. That's a solid squad. In fact, this makes me want to make this lineup. You know what I'm saying? So I highly recommend the DFS Dominator over at Player Profiler. Go check that out. But without further ado, this is my week 1 DFS lineup. Very similar to what they gave us, but just a little bit more of some Jason flag plants in here and some value play. So I went with Jaden Daniels. I think that he has a really solid upside given his rushing, and I think that this could end up being a shootout against the Buccaneers. So I did go ahead and stack him with Terry McLaurin and Zach Ertz. I felt that that would be perfect. And then with the skinny stack as well on the opposite side of the ball, why not throw Rachaad White in there? The Commanders' defense is not that good. So why not? Just throw Rachaad White in there. He should catch a ton of passes on top of getting a lot of running volume as well. So I think that that's a really good way to attack this game. And then the rest of the way, I kind of just went value and chalk. Really, you guys know I love Kenneth Walker. I think he's going to be able to run wild against this Broncos defense. I think he's going to be utilized a ton. Drake London in the flex. When I saw the Kyle Pitts injury, I just was like, well, I guess we'll go with Drake London. It's not like the Steelers have great corners or anything like that. And I'm sure Drake London hates Arthur Smith, so he'll be fired up. So we throw him in the flex. Justin Jefferson, my wide receiver 1, just going with him. I think he's going to get, like I said, 25 targets. It's going to be ridiculous how often the ball goes his way. So I want him at his price right now in an easy matchup against the Giants. And then I went with Tank Dell as my final player because I just think like I said, he's the cheapest Texan in DFS as well. And like we keep saying, he's CJ Stroud's favorite target, guys. So get Tank Dell while he's still a value. And then, like I said, on defense, I'm going with the Texans over the Colts. I do like the Panthers pick, though. That was interesting from DFS Dominator. I might change that. The reason I went with the Texans over the Panthers is I feel a touchdown. I feel a pick 6. You know what I mean? Like, I feel a pick 6 coming from this Texan. So I shot for the moon there. I feel like that's one that not a lot of people are going to have just because people have so much faith in Anthony Richardson. So, yeah, that's kind of where I went. I always like to start from the bottom on the defenses and work my way up. And, yeah, Texans. Felt like they were a decent cheap option there. So that is my DFS lineup. That's the DFS Dominator. Now, like I said at the beginning of the show, I did want to talk about tonight's Thursday night football game just a little bit. We won't spend too long here. I know this has been a long episode already, but hey, tomorrow's going to be a short one. Week 1's here. This is all you can do, right? Like this is what it's all about. So producer Dustin throwing the Pick'em League link in the chat. I couldn't find a link, so thank you for that, Dustin. Every time I went to invite, it just asked for emails. So we'll see. But anyway, the Ravens heading to Kansas City. The Chiefs are favored by 3 points. It's a 46.5 point total. I think they definitely go over. I know that it's a primetime game, first game of the season. Those generally stay low. But I think a lot of points are going to come in this game. I think it's going to be fireworks. And I know it's in Kansas City. I know the Chiefs are favored, but I'm feeling the Ravens. I'm feeling the Ravens upset here. In fact, Lamar Jackson's bid to repeat as the MVP begins tonight. He's going to go wild. He's going to have a rushing touchdown. He's going to have at least 2 passing touchdowns. And it's going to be awesome. Lamar Jackson's going to start the year off hot, reminding everyone why he won MVP last year. Love me some Lamar Jackson in this game. Going to be a very fun one. I think we start the year off with a little bit of an upset in Kansas City. Now, my underdog picks for this went ahead. There's a free one out there right now, so you can just get Travis Kelce over half a yard. So that's easy. And then I actually paired it with a couple spicy peppers, little hot ones. Derrick Henry, more than 1.5 receptions. I think that's honestly a gimme. I think that he'll take 2 receptions pretty easy. And then, like I said, I think that Lamar Jackson gets a rushing touchdown. So I went with those 2. I understand that these are spicy peppers for a reason, but that's how you make your money. So this was $10 for 60, I think, or something like that. I put $10 down on this one. So we'll see. And also, guys, when I'm doing these, I'm not throwing a ton of money at these, so I don't recommend you guys do either. Like the DFS lineup I showed you guys, that was just a free entry into the $5 tournament. You get a free entry for depositing right now. This was just $10 on underdog, and that was only really because of the first game. I felt like going crazy, and I also feel confident in these picks. I generally only felt like $1, they're hard. And then the DFS for for Thursday Night Football, the Showdown Captain. This was just a $1 entry. But I like it a lot. There's some value here for tonight's game. You've got to make Lamar Jackson your captain. I thought about getting cute with it, but no, you've got to make Lamar Jackson your captain. And then I went with Devontae Walker as my cheap player. 2.4K for the deep shot player, I think is pretty good. And I don't think a lot of people are going to have him given it's the Ravens rookie. And a lot of people were kind of off of him in the pre-draft process as well. So I like Devontae Walker in this as a cheap dart throw. And then Xavier Worthy with Marquise Brown out, I feel like is a lock. I think a lot of people are going to have Xavier Worthy, though, but still put him in there. And I'm deciding to go with Mark Andrews because I don't think a lot of people are going to play him. With him having that car accident, not practicing much throughout training camp. In fact, I don't think he did at all. I think this is the first week he made it back to practice. I could see a lot of people being scared to start him week 1. And in fact, probably getting kind of cute with it and starting Isaiah Likely. So I felt I'll just take the inverse. I'll go with Mark Andrews. It's Mandrews for pretty cheap. And then, of course, Rashee Rice at 7.6K. That I also felt was pretty cheap, pretty deflated right now because of the off-the-field issues, which opened the door for me to be able to land Patrick Mahomes into the lineup as well. So, though this is my shutdown captain mode lineup for Thursday Night Football, feel free to copy it if you want or mix it up a little bit. That's why I'm sharing it. But that should do it, guys. I would love to answer some questions, but we've kind of been talking for a little bit. So, I'll answer just a couple right here. Rashee Rice or Waddle. We'll go with... probably Rice, honestly. I think that this, I think he has the higher floor, and that's why. I think Waddle has the higher ceiling, but we'll take the floor here. Thursday Night Football. Give yourself more of a reason to watch the game. Pick 2, Kenneth Walker, Rashee Rice, or Mostert. Kenneth Walker and Rashee Rice. Easy for me. Just sit Mostert. Just sit Mostert. And then, I can't scroll up. I'm tired. I'm so tired. My mouth is so dry, guys. I at least got those out of the way. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter. Maybe tune into tomorrow's show for some more questions and stuff like that. Tomorrow's Wake and Take will be season-long predictions. I'm predicting the MVP, the Super Bowl, all that stuff. Throwing my hot takes out there one last time before the season kicks off. So make sure you tune into tomorrow's episode. If you like today's long-winded episode previewing Week 1, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to Player Profiler and the Player Profiler news channel. Find the Wake and Take podcast via the link in the description, and go ahead and support me on social media. You can follow me at JFootballWine everywhere. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Football is finally here. Let's get excited, guys. Enjoy football tonight. Stay up late. Fuck your rest. Watch some football and be back here tomorrow morning for some more football talk, 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday on Wake and Take. You all have a terrific Thursday. Enjoy the game. Have a good rest of your week, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.